What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that we've been eagerly anticipating just because we love this artist. We've been following this artist regardless of whether his name is followed by band or project or just another band's name. Doesn't matter. It's DEVY. And we're going over his new album, Powernerd. This comes out on the 25th of October on Inside Out Music. DEVY has been putting out solo music, I believe, since 1997 with Ocean Machine Biomech, which is just an amazing album and an amazing start to a run of just really incredible solo work. And we're talking about stuff outside of Devin Townsend Project, Devin Townsend Band, and even like Strapping Young Lad. So in terms of solo offerings, I believe this is his 12th one overall. And I mean, for me, Devin Townsend's just one of my favorite people in music in general. And I think he's just, I don't know, one of the most interesting musicians in progressive metal in general, because, I don't know, like his songwriting just flat out stands out. Like, you know, when you are listening to a Devin Townsend related anything, or kind of even know when he shows up on an album, because instantly it just gets a lot Devier.
My rise to Devin was not, I guess, the typical one. I didn't start with the solo projects at all. I started with Strapping Young Lad.
Same.
The self-titled one, most notably. Well, I remember that record being awesome. I really got into the man's haircut. At the time, that man rocked a skullet like nobody's business. Forever, when I talked about crazy hairstyles, I always referenced Devin Townsend. It wasn't until years later Nick and I went to go see Between the Buried and Me, and the Devin Townsend Project headlined that show, and it blew my mind. That was one of the best shows I think I've ever been to. The light show alone is worth its weight in gold. It was around Coma Ecliptic or so, at least for Between the Buried and Me. So yeah, pretty much ever since then, I've been a fan of what this man does. I went back and of course listened to Ziltoid, which we're jamming right now in the background, which is an amazing record. And although I haven't picked apart all of his discography because it's quite lengthy, I'm a huge fan.
So yeah, needless to say, we were excited about this one, and I already had questions about the album title because, like, all right, that's a totally different classification of nerd that I know. I've always just been called a standard nerd.
Yeah.
Who knows? I could have leveled up. But DEVY, being the awesome person he is, actually clarified the definition, and it is written here on the liner notes. Power nerd, noun, a person of any gender who has, through tenacity and perseverance, turned what society may deem as weakness into a superpower. Definition 2, a total fucking badass. Definition 3, you. So now that we've all established that everyone in this video and watching this video is a nerd, we can continue. No, but seriously, I've always stood by the, whole thing that I think metalheads are nerds, and that is not a dig in any way.
No.
I would also say we're dorks too. Yep. Slightly different variation, but we're passionate about our music. We're nerdy about it. We know stats and figures and all that. And yeah, like, this is no secret. And if you're offended by, like, being called a nerd, don't. Like, honestly, it's a badge of honor. Wear it. You're smart. You're just awkward. I mean, we're all hella awkward.
Yeah.
That's kind of how this channel was born anyway.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, we really wanted to go over this one. I only heard the one single, which was the lead-off track and title track, Powernerd. And, it was instantly fun. It's just kind of a straight up rocker, kind of goes for like D beats, and the music video for it is, it's delightfully DEVY. That's the best way to describe it. But it's, more up tempo and more bright, and I don't know, like, it's just sort of a fun rocker. Like, just imagine if Overkill was in a great mood throughout an entire song and it wasn't about destroying something. It was about, like, yeah, let's go help someone fix their plumbing or whatever the hell DEVY is doing in that video. I'm not entirely sure. It's just ridiculous.
And he even works in a cat meow. I've noticed that throughout multiple records now. There's always a mewing cat somewhere in the album. And this is it. And it's real quick. You gotta listen for it. I wasn't even listening for it. I was just like, is that Nick's cat? No, it's in the album.
He even squeezes in a Jamie Josta, which I didn't really notice, but he was doing like backup growls for the chorus, I believe. And Jamie Josta's presence honestly kind of works with this album, even though it's just that, 1 or 2 seconds, because he just kind of pop up at the end. Because, what Jamie Josta is known for is his overwhelming positivity and, you can do it lyrics, which, I mean, yeah, he's going to tell you to get up, get on your feet. He's going to swear about it too, which I totally appreciate. But yeah, like, that's kind of his vibe. And honestly, throughout the majority of this album, this is, I would say, like a very bright and just like reaffirming album that you're a good person and you should strive to be even better, that sort of vibe. I mean, there's definitely, it dips into, I wouldn't say darkness, like just like kind of a gray haze, but overwhelmingly, this is a very positive, uplifting album.
Yeah, there aren't too many dark moments at all. In fact, there aren't really too many heavy moments, which I found to be kind of a shocker. Falling Apart, of course, is one of them where it is notably heavy and a little bit darker, at least in the beginning. You get a big dissonant melody, and the man produced the record himself once again, so I kind of don't need to talk about production quality. It is larger than life and big, lush atmospheres and whatnot, and so when you get this big, dark, dissonant melody, it's huge. And it goes between this heavy moment and then a bunch of big, lush atmospheres and kind of like a contrast between bright and dark, and that really flows throughout this record. Glacier would be the other example of super heavy, and it actually kind of moves like a glacier. Huge, dark riff, gigantic chorus. It does have some softer moments in it. Again, plays kind of with that contrast. It doesn't really get any bigger than this.
One of the big things with Devy's writing is scope. When he wants to get down to a very quiet, intimate moment, it is very soft and tender. And then when it gets down to that larger than life moment, it is like a whole other planet. It's Planet Devy, and the riffs are huge. And that plays, of course, with the production being just absolutely gigantic, absolutely Devy-ish. There's lots of interesting atmospheric bits, and the atmosphere generally matches the tone and vibe of the songs. There's frequently lush synths in the background, but sometimes the more fun and more loose songs, you get video game noises like Knuckle Dragger, which is just kind of a more up-tempo, upbeat kind of goofy song. Honestly, it's probably one of the nerdiest songs on the album. It definitely has some serious competition with the track we will get to later, but it's fun, it's loose, it's kind of silly. There's contra noises or something in it. I picked up a whole bunch of additional atmosphere, but it's kind of carried by a heavy, chuggy, but still very bright, kind of poppy riff, and it's just kind of got this fun bounce to it, but at the same time you can still pick up all the layered guitars and synths, and sometimes it's just this big din of noise and it shrinks back down. He does a lot of really cool things with production in terms of transitions, shrinking down the sound and then blowing it up later. For me, Knuckle Dragger kind of harked back to the Devin Townsend project, specifically around Addicted, where he was really trying to go for those almost power pop songs, but done in kind of his proggy fashion. You get a little bit of that vibe on Goodbye as well, which has these kind of fun, playful riffs. There's riffs on there that kind of remind me a little bit of Van Halen. There's just a little bit of Eddie Van Halen to this particular riff on there. And again, it's just kind of fun with all these bright melodies and huge synths. And when it comes down to choruses, it's rarely ever just Devy. It's a army of Devys and a full choir behind him, and the Philharmonic. Yep. It's, again, he knows how to make these choruses absolutely huge, and that gives almost kind of everything a soaring effect.
And the way this man layers things has always baffled me, because unlike that first song off the new Winter Sun album, which was huge and sounded like a big jumbled mess of garbage, this just sounds like you could hear everything and everything sits perfectly in the right place and nothing overpowers anything, and it's just this one big massive sound where you can hear 100 things at once, and that doesn't typically occur in most music, period.
And there's a warmth to it too, and that's something I've loved about his production, but that also kind of ties into his music, because in terms of progressive metal, I've always thought of Devin Townsend as just being kind of unique. A lot of his songs he writes from the perspective of the kind of emotional place that he's at the moment. So while it is, generally technical and lots of interesting songwriting transitions and such, all of it seems to kind of come from the heart. It's, again, more driven emotionally. You can definitely hear that on tracks like Jainism and Younger Lover. Younger Lover in particular, when it kind of shrinks down to the acoustic melodies and those fluttering, just floating vocals. I don't know, I just feel there's so much heart put into it, just as much as there's again cerebral energy put into it. But the constantly shifting sounds on his albums and styles and stuff that he implements in it, that just kind of speaks to his quirky personality. All of his music is definitely a reflection of him as kind of a person. It's very personal. Like, this is, once again, stepping inside of Devin Townsend's brain, which, if you've been there before, is just an absolutely nuts place, especially if you listen to, like, Genesis or Ziltoid or really anything, just because, there are really no rules with Devin Townsend. It's like, you know what, I'm just going to do this because this is kind of what I'm feeling.
I was just talking to Nick earlier before we did the review. We were talking about his pandemic specials. I don't know if you guys ever saw those, but I think those were some of the best, most brilliant things to hit the internet around that time, because it did give you a better, kind of more personal look into the man's life just by that setup. You had that shaky camera. There was one attached to a fan, so it was always oscillating. There was another attached to the mixing board, and like, you could tell he's just a big, giant goofball, yet extremely talented. I don't think anybody really writes songs like Devin Townsend.
And his attitude always feels genuine. Like, all these songs, pretty much kind of have like a you can do it sort of attitude. And it doesn't feel like, you're just like posting that fucking picture of a kitten hanging on a branch. Like, look at you hanging in there, bud. Everyone does that. And like, stop. Okay, it's almost lost its meaning, and that cat's dead by now. But it feels honest. And again, like, when his quirkiness really comes out, I think that's where, like, I don't know, Devy just really shines.
And a prime example of that would be the last track, Ruby Quaker, which is honestly my favorite track on this album. Starts out like, I don't know, a guy singing on a porch. Like, he's got a piece of straw in his mouth. It's got kind of a Western vibe to it. And he's just singing quietly with a guitar on his porch. And he loves coffee. And you all know from Ziltoid, obviously, there's a coffee reference there. But he really just goes on and on about coffee. There's a verse about coffee. The chorus is I love coffee. And, like, the whole song is not serious whatsoever. It reminds me of something like Les Claypool and Weird Al would do, along with Between the Buried and Me. And it was perfection.
It's almost kind of a callback to Genesis in terms of, like, just how wild and crazy those songs were. And I don't know, like, the descriptors on here, like, you have, like, almost that kind of, like, it's almost like a banjo sound, which totally makes sense because Devin plays banjo too. In fact, I think he learned how to play on a banjo before he learned how to play guitar. But as the song builds, it gets quirkier and weirder, like, kind of just builds on the melody. Like, all of a sudden you get layered guitars or banjos, who knows, then everyone's singing about coffee, and then the electric guitars come in, and then it's like the entire circus that lives in Devy's brain just comes rolling out. There's even a death metal section on there. Like, all of a sudden, just like, oh my god, vicious tremolos, blast beats, like, my god, that was heavy, and okay, we're done. We're back to singing about coffee, but I really don't have any issues with it other than you kind of teased one side of your brain that I really would like to hear more of, but I totally get it. But I like that song because it's fun. And while I like the more, like, bright, positive message that is all over this album, I feel like this album is definitely missing something. And the thing that I really centered on was, I feel like these songs need to be a bit bigger. A lot of these songs feel kind of trimmed down. Like, Devy is awesome at writing longer songs. I honestly prefer when he writes longer songs because he is excellent at building and dynamics and all that stuff. With Devin Townsend, sometimes bigger is better. Yeah, sometimes some prog bands get a little too long-winded, but I feel like with Devin Townsend, bigger is better. The more he draws out a song, the more instrumentation there is, the more of just him, just crafting amazing soundscapes and such. I love it. You do that same thing with Dream Theater and you're just giving James LaBrie more opportunities to ruin the song.
And it's weird because I'm used to his music being chocked full of dynamics, and while there are interesting parts in most songs, maybe it's because of the length, I don't know, but it felt kind of lackluster at times. And like, giving specific examples, like, a lot of these songs start off with this really heavy groove and you're like, all right, and then it immediately cuts, and we're talking like seconds after you get into this heavy start, it cuts to something like dreamlike and whimsical, like Gratitude. Gratitude starts off really heavy and then we're into a dreamscape. Or Jainism does the same thing. Starts off really heavy with this big old chuggy groove, and then really dreamlike. And like, it happens in a lot of these songs, and you're like, A, all right, I've heard this setup before, and B, after those clean moments, it doesn't really often go a whole lot of any place.
Well, it goes right back to the chorus, which, I mean, the chorus hooks in here are awesome. I just feel like because these songs are condensed, they kind of lose a bit of the impact. One of the things again, that I love about Devin's writing is songs feel like a journey. Like you are kind of going with Devy on this emotional journey, whatever he's talking about, whether it's angry Devy, happy Devy, reflective, introspective Devy. Doesn't really matter. He generally takes you on like a journey. A lot of these songs, they come across as like an epiphany. You know, like bam, we have arrived at the destination, the thought, the thing, and we are immediately going to just kind of go for it rather than kind of like draw out the song and kind of take you on that journey building towards this awesome destination, which is like chorus land. And, you know, it dulls the impact. And I don't necessarily always want to safely arrive at the destination, at least with the song, like, you know, traveling wise, definitely.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to kind of go through some like pitfalls and such and some different builds. And speaking of building, like there are sections on here where I feel like the instrumentation could be drawn out more than just a couple of measures because, you know, it still sounds like Devy. Like there are riffs that I absolutely love on here. Just like there are riffs I love on every Devy album, but he kind of condenses them down just to kind of get to the hook a little bit too quickly. Still, even though I feel like I did get like kind of a diet Devy here, I still had fun listening to it. It's still enjoyable. It's still 100% Devy. It's just not as enjoyable as other albums he's put out. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. It's still a really good listen. It still has some absolutely killer songs. And again, I like this, you know, positive emotion that he just exudes on this album because we listen to a ton of dark, negative stuff. So it's a kind of a nice break. And everything that I love about Devin Townsend's material is on here. And I know that's kind of a wide swath there, but it really is. It's just in a condensed format. I feel like these songs needed a little bit more room to breathe to really kind of build to the heights they were shooting for. But still, I think this is a pretty solid piece of work. And if you're a longtime Devin Townsend fan, you're going to find tons of stuff you like on here. And if you just like, I don't know, prog metal in general, and especially like lush soundscapes, like there's so much lush beauty on here that you'd swear you were listening to a Devin Townsend album. I don't know how else to really draw that comparison. Yeah, it just sounds like Devin Townsend. If you're a longtime Devin Townsend fan, check this out.
For the most part, I agree with Nick. I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 stars. I think I was spoiled by Genesis and Lightwork and the just amazing moments that were on those records. Not that this record is void of amazing moments, because they're still very well written songs and they're a lot of fun. And again, positivity is key, you guys. In a world full of negative, dark music that we often live in, it's nice to hear somebody gives a shit. And like that really comes out in the message of most of these songs. They are still fairly entertaining, big whimsical moments. Of course, the chorus is, again, larger than life. The 1,000-foot tall chorus and an army of Devy. It is a little condensed, and like I just felt like a lot of these songs just could have been a little bit larger, something more to latch onto, because the transitions, they switch from like intro to verse to chorus real quick, and the only thing it really revisits is a chorus. So I'm like missing kind of those big heavy moments. There are still a couple of songs with them. Overall, it's not bad. I just thought it was a little lackluster. Once again, if you're a fan of Devin Townsend and all of his really work and projects, you're probably going to be a fan of this. And yeah, if you just like big prog music, which this also is, you're probably going to want to check this out. So do it. Check it out.
I seriously hope there's a sequel to this called Ultra Dork, and it's even bigger and just weirder and zanier. But, you know, honestly, I'll just buy whatever he puts out at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I bought this one, too. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also now have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our only perk so far is doing a members-only stream, which we will be doing that sometime next month when the releases slow down, which might be soon. I don't know. November apparently has some big releases too. We also offer a booger troll, which I'm never going to get used to saying that sentence. Yeah, that's a thing that we have, and there will probably be other stupid things we offer as emojis because we're us. And yeah, this is kind of the new way to support the channel directly. We're trying to move away from Patreon, and this also kind of helps us with StreamYard raising their prices. Again, granted, the quality and it's going up. And yeah, I know they're still charging us more money, and that sucks. But if you'd like to help us out with that, there's a join button down below, and we still have our store with our t-shirts and hats and such, thrallsmetal.com, which is linked down below in the description. Either one, if you'd like to help us out, click the links.
Memberships, merch, album reviews, discography rankings, multiple segments, Nick's never-ending collection updates. Always a ton of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal. We do it all for you guys, all of our family, our friends, our subscribers, everybody that helps make this channel something monumental, which I never expected it to be ever in a million years, but here we are. We just do all this stuff all the time for you guys, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely roll. Tons of content coming your way. We are going to be putting up a poll here soon for our 6th review, because this is another busy week, and well, we want you to have some input on it, so we're going to list some releases that we want to go over, but sadly we can't go over them all because there's just too many of them. But yeah, we're going to put up a whole list of, you know, prospective ones we wanted to go over, and we're just going to have to decide which one, and you're going to help us with that. But yeah, you guys, absolutely amazing, and again, tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you, and we will catch you later.